most districts are just starting to get their feet wet.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And how about you?
So I'm a STEM teacher and arts teacher, but I'm also the director of curriculum at our school. So
And is it a high school or?
middle school.
Middle school, okay.
A very cool all girls middle school.
Cool, very cool.
But we're a little bit of both, using and not using. It's like beginning, but we're getting to an intermediate where we've played with some different platforms where we're doing it very cautiously, but want to do it thoughtfully so that kids are
Right.
still doing real learning,
Yes.
and also using it as a just right tool that their brain actually grows,
Right.
and not just. So it's a struggle, right? And I mean, one of the
It's a
reasons.
real delicate balancing act, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And using it ethically.
Right, and
Yeah.
you don't
That's the
want
big
to
question.
not use it because you're not preparing them, and yet doing it in just the right way. So
Right.
we're in that grapple.
Okay, thank you. And how about you, my friend?
My name is Chad. I'm a teacher at East Hampton High School, and I use it myself in terms of I use CurioPod, ChatGPT, and Risk AI.
Okay, and what was the first one you mentioned?
CurioPod, CURIOPod.
And what is that specifically?
That helps lesson planning.
Okay, that's great. All right.
Scaffolded lesson.
All right, well, thank you. So, I want to start off with a very big picture point of view, because I think it's, regardless of how much time people pay attention to what's happening globally, there is no question that we are in a new space race. And I cannot overstate enough just how deeply competitive and consequential this space race is going to be. Okay, next slide, please. So, I don't know how many of you pay attention to the AI space super closely, but you may have heard of what happened with DeepSeek back in the January-February timeframe coming out of Davos, and it put incredible fear and panic in the hearts of the market. And I think that we in America are incredibly naive to think that the Chinese are not ahead of us on many levels when it comes to AI. And of course, we're going to talk about why that matters in the world of education. We're going to get there. But they are publishing more papers out of their research houses, okay? I'm going to share with you a Chinese AI-based edtech company that has 25 million users today. They have partnered with Carnegie Mellon University. They have partnered with Stanford Research. They are a very serious 12-year-old company, and their numbers are stunning. Okay, so next slide, right? So let me just show you. So when you look at the ratings of some of these large language models, obviously the red line representing China, right? They're basically where we are today, right? There's very little difference, and in some cases they're ahead of us. But the next slide, I think, is really interesting. And so this is a graphic that shows electricity generation capacity. So we all live in New England. Whether we realize it or not, our electricity costs have gone up by about 26% this year. Why is that? Because of the data centers that are processing these trillions of tokens. So it's all about the laws of supply and the demand for electricity is being driven by these large hyperscalers, and we do not have the capacity to keep up. China is able to go out and build nuclear plants and power plants like in literally months, okay? It takes us decades. So these are some really challenging things that we are facing as a country in the years ahead. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to introduce Squirrel AI. And when I came across this company, my jaw dropped, because the numbers that they've been able to put up are insane. Okay, now, has anybody spent any time in China?
In China, yes.
Okay, if you go to China and you come back to America, you think we may be living in a third world country. And you look at their mass transit, their bullet trains, you look at the infrastructure that they've built, you look at their airport, and it is remarkable what they've been able to do, okay? So one of the things, we all know that the Chinese revere education, right? So I teach at Harvard, I teach at Brown, I've taught at Berkeley. We all know how many Asian Americans and Chinese Americans are on campus, right? Sometimes you actually feel like you're not even living in the United States of America. So education is sacrosanct there. In China, they have something called a super teacher. This is a teacher that has gone through an incredibly competitive process within a district or within a region, and they are, exalted as these master teachers, okay? And everybody wants to study with a super teacher. okay? But there's very few of them. And yet Squirrel AI is outperforming these super teachers, and I will share some numbers in a few minutes, okay? They are substantially financially viable. They've raised $200 million in venture capital, right? They've done work with Carnegie Mellon. They set up, way back, a research lab on personalized education at scale, long before ChatGPT was even a thing. They've been working with Stanford Research Institute since 2017. So this is not a Johnny-come-lately. This is a long journey. They are way ahead of the curve here, okay? They've established the Chinese Academy of Sciences, a joint lab of AI learning. And not surprisingly, they've got 2,000 distributors around the country, and that's given them 25 million students. But what's really amazing is they have data from 10 billion Chinese students. Okay, next slide, please. So if we look at Squirrel AI just compared to a standard teacher, an average teacher, and you look at the, this is an 8th grade math study, you actually see with Squirrel AI 53.7, post-test 77.4, a 23.7% gain versus a 7% gain for the standard teacher. Next slide. Now we start to compare with the super teachers, the best of the best. And so if you look at the super teacher only, 22.1. If you look at the Squirrel AI only, it's 28.6. But if you combine the best of both worlds, you now get a 32.4 or a 10.3 lift. Now, Marina is going to talk about another very interesting example when she gets up. You may have read about them in the New York Times 2 weekends ago, a company called Alpha AI. And there is one philosophical difference between Alpha AI and Squirrel. Squirrel believes in the combination of both the teacher and the AI. Alpha has a different model, which Marina will explain in detail. Next slide. Okay. So at the end of the day, well, let's just go to the next slide. We'll go right to the next slide, okay? So if you start to see the lift, the average gain for standard teacher, 6.2, super teacher, 22.1, Squirrel AI in and of itself, 28.6, but the best of both worlds, 32.4, right? So I know that there's a lot of concern for teachers that we're going to lose our jobs. We're going to be replaced, okay? And I don't think there will ever be a day when that will happen, okay? And so the question, of course, becomes, how much AI do we bring into the classroom? To your point, what's that delicate balance to ensure that we get the optimal outcome? Next slide. Okay. So I'm not going to bother with this one. Next slide. Next slide. All right. So now let's come back to the good old US of A. Okay. Next slide. So I teach undergraduate, graduate, and exec ed at Harvard, at Brown, at Carnegie Mellon, at Cornell, and schools like that, Berkeley. Okay. A lot of my focus is with my high school students. And I'm currently teaching as we speak a program during Harvard Summer School. This is my 6th summer working with very talented high school students. It's an entrepreneurship program, okay? So what I care about for my students is I'm trying to get my high school students into the best colleges they can get into, and I'm trying to get my undergraduate students into the best career opportunities I can get to. If you've not been paying attention, what you may have missed in the last 6 months is the number of entry-level opportunities coming out of even the top universities are disappearing quickly. Let me share a few specific examples. I will be an executive fellow at Harvard Business School in the fall. Harvard Business School historically has had a 96, 97% placement rate of its MBA graduates by the time they leave campus. This year, it's in the low 70s. It's the same for MIT, Sloan, it's the same for Stanford. We are seeing the elimination of entry-level coveted jobs in management consulting, in investment banking, in commercial banking, in accounting, and of course, for my colleague from Northeastern, in software development, okay? And so this is going to be a huge national economic policy issue sooner rather than later, okay? And we look at the number of people underemployed a year after graduation, it's the highest it's been since the Great Recession, okay? So I think it's really important to understand that if we're not training them early on how to use AI effectively, okay, they are not going to even have the opportunity when they get into even the best schools in the world to get the job that they want. Next slide. Okay. So I'm not only engaged in education, right? I'm also engaged, I'll be giving a keynote in 2 months at a conference of all of the business school deans in New England and in the Middle Atlantic states. Because they're all trying to figure out now, how do we educate our students in this new world order, right? What degree programs, right? And for example, if you look at the top computer science schools in the world, they're convening this summer with the Association of Computing Machinery to determine how they're going to completely change the computer science curriculum that we've been using since the 1960s. That's how dramatic it has become. Okay, next slide. So as a guy that has founded 8 tech companies and who has also been engaged in education for 20 years, I've always been very passionate about mentoring ed tech companies and about bringing ed tech companies into my classroom to try out the technology. And I would tell you, more often than not, I'm quite disappointed. More often than not, I'm underwhelmed. And I therefore understand why there is so much resistance on the part of school systems. Because most tech companies think the tech is everything. They don't understand that it's all about change management, it's about culture, it's about understanding people and not going too quickly, okay? So I've lived in this world for a long, long time. Next. So, and here's a young woman that I'm mentoring right now. She is currently studying for her MBA at MIT Sloan. She was a Teach for America teacher for several years. She worked for Cengage Learning, she worked for a number of educational consulting firms, and she's now building a startup called Homeroom Hero. And she's doing very, very rigorous research, and what she's being told by 75% of her interviewees, teachers, get the technology away from my students, okay? Keep it away from my students, okay? Which is troubling. Now, what I will tell you is, just yesterday, I polled my 25 Harvard high school students, and I asked them, how many of you were allowed to use AI in your classroom? One American, an incredible young woman at an arts charter school in LA, is the only one of all of my American students using AI in the classroom. All of the other educators refuse to allow it to happen. Yet I had a student from Colombia in South America using AI. I had a student from Dubai using AI in the classroom. And I can go on, okay? So is there something wrong with this picture here? Okay, I think there is. I sincerely think there is. Next slide, please. So keep going. So, you know, I imagine most of you know some of the people whose names I'm about to present. Sir Ken Robinson had maybe one of the most watched YouTube videos in history. He's been an inspiration to all of us. He passed away in 2020 during COVID, unfortunately, right? But we're going to see a theme here. Next slide. Esther Wojcicki is a friend and a fellow board member. Esther Wojcicki is most known for the successful 3 daughters that she raised, including the CEO of YouTube, the CEO of 23andMe, and a medical professor at UCal San Francisco. But she was named the Teacher of the Year in California in 2002. And her students wound up winning the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism Award for their student newspaper several years. And so Esther embraces the Ken Robinson mindset. And what she would tell me is she would have to kick her kids out of the classroom at 10 o'clock at night because they were having so much fun learning and engaging that it wasn't studying, it was play. It was really something that they were immersed in. Okay, next slide. Mitch Resnick. I assume most of us know Mitch Resnick in Lifelong Kindergarten, but how many of you know that Mitch Resnick also created the computer programming language called Scratch? Scratch is something that has 170 million users today. And it's created to allow kids to work on all kinds of projects around the arts and things like that. And they have global competitions, right? But there's a theme. There's a theme here. Next slide. And then we have Renzulli from the University of Connecticut, right? And although they began working with gifted children, they wound up saying, we think this methodology applies to everybody, okay? So one of the things that I think is important, and I think why AI is so valuable, is it clears time away from the rote study to allow students to engage in creative projects and entrepreneurial endeavors and field trips and things of that nature, which is where so much of the learning comes from. Next slide. Okay. So here's an example from just a week ago in my own classroom. You guys know what vibe coding is? You've all heard of vibe coding? Okay. So when I introduced my 25 students on day one this summer at this Harvard Summer School program, and I said, we're going to use AI in the classroom, their eyes lit up like it was Christmas Day and Thanksgiving all at once. They were so excited because they were prevented from using these tools in their classroom. So we have leaned into AI heavily, but what's most fascinating is we gave what are mostly 15 and 16-year-old students with zero coding experience 6 hours of mentorship and coaching on the use of vibe coding tools. What they created is stunning. 2 of the teams have already launched products, formally launched products, with just 3 weeks of class time. And these are not silly products, these are real products, okay? So the joy when these kids get to work on this stuff, I can't tell you how transformative it is, the confidence they get. Next slide, okay? And so again, my classrooms for the last 20 years have always looked like this, right? We sit in teams, we sit in flexible classrooms, and most of what we do is we work on creative projects, we work on coding projects, we work on business plans, right? That's how I run my classes. Next slide. Okay. Now, we are also leaning in heavily. I happen to be the first teacher in the world who has integrated this new Harvard Business School Foundry AI platform into my classroom. What Harvard has done is they have fine-tuned a model, okay, and they've trained it on massive amounts of Harvard Business School content on entrepreneurship. They've also interviewed 8 of their most highly respected professors, and they have created avatars of these professors, including Professor Shekhar Ghosh. So you can actually go to Shekhar Ghosh or Jeff Bousgang or Tom Eisenman or Shai Bernstein, and you can ask them questions in real time, either through your voice or through text. 24/7, all day, every day, I can now get coaching from all of these world-class Harvard Business School professors. This is changing education. Next slide. But here's what I did last week. I gave the students a midterm last week. And here's, what you see here is pretty self-evident, okay? This midterm was taken old school. We took their phones, their tablets, their smartwatches, and we grabbed the largest conference room we could in Emerson Hall, named after the great Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we gave them, and I handed out paper exams. And they took a 2.5-hour midterm. And boy, was the heat coming off of their brains that day, okay? I mean, these kids were, you could tell that level of focus is not something they're used to. This is the anti-TikTok method, okay? A lot of sighing, a lot of heaving, okay? But they work their way through it. So you can bring AI into the classroom and still assess students on what they have learned, right? It's possible, okay? I mean, did it take me extra time to set up the exam this way? Absolutely. But for me, right, I know that if you use AI, what's going to happen is they're going to cheat on the exam, period, okay? And this just, this is the best way to assess in the new day and age. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so how many of you saw OpenAI study room? Did anybody see this new announcement this past week? So OpenAI is very, very focused today on education. What you may or may not know is when they released 3.5, right, which was the meteor strike that hit the earth, one of the first things Sal Khan did is he reached out, Sam Altman did is he reached out to Sal Khan. Because he understood that when you can generate words and images and numbers, it's going to have an impact. So they were partnering behind the scenes with Sal Khan, and that was what led to Khanmigo, okay, a long time ago. Of course, if you just bring in traditional ChatGPT into the classroom, students are going to cheat. It's going to give you the answer. So what they announced this week is something called study mode. And in many ways, it's a lightweight version of Khanmigo because it will not give you the answer. It has been trained to not give you the answer. It has been trained to provide guardrails around the questioning, and it's really a very Socratic tool. Next slide, please. All right, and how many of you use Canvas? Anybody use Canvas? Okay, a lot of you. So I've been consulting to Canvas. I gave a keynote at their annual employee conference in March. And it was interesting to see they finally made this announcement. So they're partnered now with OpenAI, where you can embed AI directly into the Canvas learning management system, right? So we do have some credible vendors here that are really trying to make this a little bit more palatable for teachers. Next slide, okay? How many of you have spent time on Khanmigo? Okay, just you? Yeah. And what's your perspective?
I was just trying to understand the business model, like how do they roll it out?
Okay.
So like as a teacher,
Yeah.
you go on and
All right.
investigate it.
I'll get into a little bit of
That's
that.
all I know.
And I'm going to take another 7 minutes, so here's time, okay? Just to make sure that you feel like you've got time. Okay, so let's keep going, okay? So let's be clear. Khanmigo comes from the great Sal Khan. Sal Khan is an American treasure, okay? What he has done in the world of education is immeasurable, okay? And so, you know, this is just a classic screen from Khanmigo, if you've never used it. And you can download it for free, and you can at least begin to play around with it. Next slide, okay? And so what I love about Sal Khan is his transparency. Everything that they do is put out in the open, and everything they do, if it's not been peer reviewed yet, it's in the process of being peer reviewed. So he's not trying to hide anything or sell anything. That's not his, you know, his purpose. Next slide. So what you might know, this now goes back to your, if you are a K-12 teacher, you will be able to use Khanmigo for free because Microsoft is funding that. Okay, so that's a Microsoft program. Okay. 89% of educators, as of 2 months ago, that were surveyed, are saying that Khanmigo has created a positive experience in their classroom. If you've never seen the 60 minutes video of Khanmigo that was done with Anderson Cooper, the founders of OpenAI, and Sal, it's a 15-minute video. I think it's very compelling. What did you think? You're nodding your head.
Yeah, it took away some of the fears
Yeah.
of kids just dropping in stuff and getting random answers.
Yeah.
Not playing with it, it forces them to ask questions,
Absolutely.
interact with it. What I wonder about, there's so many options now. You've got Magic School.
Yeah.
And so trying to discern which is the best, because I'm not interested in changing lots of platforms.
Exactly.
And so that's,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it's a very challenging thing. My understanding, and I don't know Magic School very well, right? But my understanding is Magic School is more around sort of the creative stuff, and that may or may not be accurate. I realize you're a sponsor.
I'm dabbling
Yeah.
in all of them a little
Yeah.
bit right now, trying to figure it out.
And by the way, I have no financial interest in this tool. I want to make that very clear. There's
Yeah,
zero.
I like the episode. I mean, it made sense
Yeah.
to me.
But I will say, I think that just given the legacy of who Sal Khan is, given that they're so closely partnered with OpenAI, so they're going to be benefiting from that advancement in their technology on a regular basis, and given the fact that they are taking a much broader view, right? Now, the other thing that I think is important to understand is that many, many universities have adopted OpenAI. We're talking Arizona State, 55,000 students, Cal State, 45,000 students. So they are starting to see massive numbers of people using it, which I think will also be useful, okay? All right, next slide. So I don't think I need to tell you what the benefits are for students, right? If the tool is well trained and the guardrails have been created properly and you have the Socratic method, they're going to learn more. I will tell you from my own experience, I've been using AI in my own classroom. OpenAI ChatGPT 3.5 came out in November of 22, January 23, new semester. It was in every one of my classes. I've been training some of my Harvard DCE colleagues on how to use it in the classroom. We've brought in chatbots, we've trained the chatbots, they're using the tools. I will tell you, I've never seen more creative, compelling project outcomes in my life. And it's nothing to do with cheating. The smartest students see these tools and it lets them go deeper and learn more and then take their learning to a new level. It's a profound impact. Next slide. And of course, for teachers, I mean, we all know, and you know better than I do because this is what you do all day, right? I teach in a very different environment. But all of the grading, all of the lesson planning, all of the incredible amounts of time that you have to spend to just deliver a great class, right? And what we're seeing is that it's giving teachers the ability to free up a lot of their time so that they can focus on mentoring or coaching. Are you the tech guy? The tech guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're good now. Okay. All right, right on time. All right, so let me ask you, for those of you who are using AI now at all, are you seeing benefits for your personal time? And
Yeah, without question.
and how much time do you say you're saving a day or a week?
I don't know the exact number at this point, but I do know when I have to do tasks that are mundane or
Yeah.
will take me 30 minutes, it can take me a few minutes. I know it. I'm learning the prompts and I'm learning how to use it more smartly
Okay,
in a way that's generating outputs that are not the best use of my time.
that's great. What about my friend in the back of the room? You're nodding your head vigorously as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I've used it, career-wise, but I've also been working on building tools for educational leaders to be able to use AI more effectively as well. So I've coded some tools.
Great. Are you an educator?
Yeah, administrator.
Okay, administrator. That's great. Thanks. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that Marina has a chance to share, but what I will say is this. I have a lot of data that I can share with you. I've got, we did a lot of research for this, but the bottom line is if you look at studying for the SATs, you're seeing a doubling or more than a doubling of outcomes on the study of the SATs. If you're looking at, and I'm only focused on high school because I've never taught in an elementary school, the numbers on algebra, the numbers on trigonometry, the numbers on calculus are stunning. Okay? And I'll share more of that with you if that's of interest to you. But let me turn it over to you now, okay?
This is a 15-minute block, right?
5
And it's the hour till
Wait, do we have the hour?
11:40.
11:40.
Not 15 minutes, a whole hour?
We have till 11:40.
Yes, it was.
So about a
Okay,
half an
Mike,
hour.
actually, I thought we had 15 minutes. If
Okay.
you want to take 5
I'll
minutes.
just take a minute or two more,
Okay.
okay? So we can have a transition, okay? But let's get right to the numbers now, right? Let's get right down to the numbers. So one of the things that I think is interesting is that Sal Khan, being Sal Khan, he's not trying to convince anybody that he's going to exceed his goals. They thought they would be at about 100,000 users, and they actually got to about 1.4 million users. So they beat their numbers by 14 or 15x, okay? So I think that's really important, okay? They are now in 266 school districts across 577 communities. And so you've got about 975,000 licensed students. And then the rest of that number that gets you to the 1.4 million are the teachers that are using the tools for free, right? So we're starting to scale. We're nowhere close to Squirrel AI. We're nowhere close to 25 million. But it's heartwarming to me that we're starting to see this. And one of the things that they say is that when you have a true partnership with a district, and the district is committed, they see a dramatic improvement in the engagement and the upskilling and upscoring of the students. So a lot of it comes down to just intentionality. Next slide. Okay, keep going. And by the way, public and private is not all that different, right? They're saying that at first it was mostly public schools, but they're starting to see a lot more private schools come online now. So it's just an example that maybe they're gaining some momentum here, okay? So within high schools, Arizona State's partnership, about 130,000 students going up to 12. Rhode Island has an SAT and college prep focus. There's a woman here that was a student of mine at Brown who's a coach in the Narragansett school system, and they're just starting to pilot Khanmigo. So if you have a chance to meet Vanessa Miller, she's been on this mission for a couple of years. She's very knowledgeable of what's going on. And then Newark has gone into the high school. So next slide. All right, so here is a before and after example of the Newark public school system, right? Almost 400 grade 9 algebra students at 2 different high schools. They made what they call the Socratic Tutor available twice a week at 40 minutes per week for 9 weeks. And then they went to a district end of unit common assessment on a 100-point scale. And here's the numbers that they got. Okay, so pre-test, Khanmigo 53.1. Control, same teacher, no Khanmigo 54. Post-test 73.9 versus 61. So a 20.8 point lift for Khanmigo, a 6.8 point lift for a control group without Khanmigo. Okay, and these numbers are going to be very consistent. Okay, next slide. Okay. All right, and so what's interesting is now 115,000 of the 380,000 students that logged into Khanmigo are in grades 9 to 12. Okay, and so we've got about 1,250 high school teachers that are using Khanmigo dashboards day to day in their classrooms today. Next slide. Here's a geometry and algebra 2 pilot. Okay, so this was from the Arizona State University plus GSV. I'm sure most of you know the GSV conference that happens every year, right? So 8,200 grade 9 and 10 geometry students across 11 districts, 3,400 Algebra 2 students, 10 weeks again. Next slide. And here it is. The number of problems that were attempted by Khanmigo students significantly higher than those that were not, 31 versus 48. The problems that were solved correctly, 71% versus 64%. Mastery unit completion, 7 versus 4. And students reporting I feel stuck less than one time, 78% versus 55%. I can go on and on with these numbers, but they're all going to tell you pretty much the same thing, okay? I think this is a very powerful tool that I think any school district should at least consider using. With that, let me turn this over to you, okay?
Mike, I have one more question though.
Yeah.
So teachers can get a free account in Khanmigo. It's when you start adding all the student users where the business model.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Now,
Just being
Yeah.
clear.
oh, no question, yes. I mean, obviously they're charging and they've lowered their prices. And I do have some pricing. I can share that with you after the
I just
talk.
looked it up, it's $4 a
Yeah,
student,
it's
$40
$4.
a month.
It started at $15 and they